Have you ever experienced a deep craving for, say, sweets or pizza or ice cream, French fries, key lime pie from Joe Stone Crabs in Miami Beach, and you ate that food, and after the craving was gone and you had what you thought you needed, it still leaves you feeling empty? And has this happened with buying clothes or buying a car or buying a house or making more money or getting a raise? What is it that we're looking for? And why is it that when we turn to external things to meet our needs, so often, not always, but most often, it never leaves us feeling that deep sense of fulfillment? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So what's up, my friend? You're probably wondering what you got yourself into. Well, this is the Legendary Life Podcast. I'm health expert Ted Rice, coach to entrepreneurs, CEOs, and other high-performing professionals. And what we do on Legendary Life is we break down science-based information on how to lose fat, prevent disease, and live a longer, healthier life. A legendary life, if you will. But on Real Talk Fridays, we have more of a conversation about things. And we try to get to the root. So to kick this off, well, before we jump in, I have to do my CTA here. But if you are listening to this podcast for the first time and you like what you hear, make sure you click that subscribe button. And if you've been listening for a while and you're aware of the comeback challenge that we do, the free 7-day quarantine comeback challenge, well, we're launching one on September 18th. So this is the time to sign up now. And if you are late to this, because we do have a cap on the number of people that we take, you will be put on the waiting list for the next one. And we don't have a date for that yet. So what is this challenge? Well, we've specifically created this challenge to help you thrive health-wise in these unprecedented times where we're all experiencing the uncertainty and novelty of the current global circumstances. Now, what happens is that I coach you for free for a week, and the people in the challenge who take up the challenge and do their part lose 1, 2, 3, 4, or even 5 pounds in 1 week and walk away. People have said that the challenge has changed their life. And look, there's no strings attached. This is simply the best way I know to help my Legendary Life family succeed and level up during this crisis. So we do this for 2 reasons. One, like I said, it's my way of helping you and giving back. Sincerely, it truly is. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to do it. And secondly, because you may be wanting to hire someone to help you level up in health and fitness, to change your body, which is really a transformation internally, but that's for what we'll get in today. If that's interesting to you, if you want to join the free challenge, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/challenge and sign up now. So let's get into it. And I'll kick it off like this. So I've been in Playa del Carmen, Mexico for 5 days now, 5 días. And I've had a very interesting time since I've been here. I got here right away. I felt like there was a weight taken off my back, and I've been meeting people. It's been more social. My social life has come back. I went cave diving yesterday, and technically speaking, cavern diving. And I really wanted to talk about that, but that's going to have to wait to the next Real Talk Friday, because this morning I ended up smoking DMT. Now, I don't know how you feel if you hear that and you don't know what it is, or if you hear it, you're like, man, why are you promoting drug use or talking about drug use on a podcast about health? Or maybe you've heard about DMT, maybe you listen to Joe Rogan or other people talk about their experiences with it. And so the first thing I want to tell you is, if this is new to you or what I'm talking about, it's just, you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to listen to it. What is this talk? I want you to keep an open mind, and I want you to listen to this story and listen to the lessons in this story. And Likewise, if you think that ayahuasca or DMT or psychedelics is something that is super cool and you should do, you want to listen to it too, because I'm going to provide context, because I don't believe it's right for everyone. So I smoked DMT this morning, and last night, so specifically, I smoked something called changa. Changa is a mixture of herbs, one containing DMT, another containing what's called a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. And they combine the two because what happens is DMT gets broken down by your body very quickly. So you need to add another chemical to help it stay there. And in the case of ayahuasca, they mix two different vines together and it lasts for hours. In the case of changa, you smoke it and it lasts for, the effects last for hours, the after effects last for hours, but the acute effects, if you will, only last for, how long did they last for? 15 minutes, 20 minutes. In fact, I had to smoke 2 times because it started wearing off very quickly. So I met someone on the first day that I got here. We had lunch. She's an entrepreneur, owns a business here, Mexican from Guadalajara, but has moved to Playa del Carmen because it's a happening place. And we got into talks about spirituality and personal growth and that type of talk. And very interesting about Mexico and Mexican culture and the indigenous culture that was here long before the Spanish arrived is that there's a history of using what a lot of people call plant medicines to heal from trauma, to expand consciousness, I'm not exactly sure, but those are the 2 big ones. So ayahuasca is not something that's been used traditionally here in Mexico, but it's been brought here. They have used peyote, which you've probably heard about, magic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, whatever you want to call them. But ayahuasca and changa is something a bit different. It's a bit new and new to this area. Anyway, she told me about her experience and the person who gave her the experience. And she talked to me about this person and then connected me with her. And I said, you know what? I might as well try. So this morning she came over 7:30 in the morning. She wanted to do 6 a.m. I'm like, does it have to be so early? And she told me for some reason she likes to do it early in the morning or at night. And so she brought a hang drum, handpan, which is a musical instrument. She brought a couple things. She brought some incense. And we sat down and we talked for a while. And we talked about, we were just breaking the ice, and we talked, and she asked me about if I had an intention, because if you've never been in a ceremony before, what they ask, and this goes for many different types of ceremonies, a cacao ceremony, which is just, chocolate, raw chocolate. So she asked me if I had an intention. And what I said was I spent the past 3 months with my dad, really stepping up and taking care of him. And I've shared that story on this podcast. But in case you're new and this is the first time listening, it's been quite a ride where he was in a very bad situation, both psychologically and physically, and still in a bad situation. But I showed up, I gave so much to him, and that I gave a bit too much. I got hurt in the process a bit. I don't know if and I'll even take responsibility for it. I'll say that, I gave too much and wasn't sure how much to give, how much to step up, and got hurt in the process. I felt depleted, as I've shared. And I said, my intention is to get back to the place where I can show up for my clients, show up for this podcast, show up, most importantly, for myself and for my family. Because right now I feel like I'm better, but I'm not quite at that level that I was before the quarantine happened, and more recently before I got the call from my dad when he was in the ER. And so that was my intention. I want to get back to that place. And so here's what happened next. We did some rapé, which is what I did when I did my first ayahuasca experience in Costa Rica at the end of 2018. And it's tobacco, and they blow it up your nose. And what they say is it opens your third eye. Whether you have a third eye, whether you believe in that, there is so I think it's very flowery, metaphorical language. And what it does is it kind of makes you very present in the moment, makes you very aware. And we talk some more after that, just getting ready, because I was a bit nervous. And even her, she does it with you. The facilitator, she doesn't call herself a shaman. She called herself a facilitator. And they do it with you. The shamans, when I was in Costa Rica, they take ayahuasca with you. And so not only do they share in the experience with you, although I don't believe they do as much, they also guide you through the experience. So it's really, I couldn't imagine having to be present for someone while experiencing the physiological effects of that drug, really. So what happened is we smoked together. And what you do is you puff on it and you get it going. It doesn't smoke like tobacco. It's hard to light it on fire. And once you get it going, you breathe in deep and you hold it. And as I was holding my breath, holding this smoke inside my lungs, reality, my visual field, what I could see started to change. What do I mean by that? Well, I was sitting on the floor in the living room here, and there's these couches with pillows, and there's patterns on the pillows, and the patterns started to shift and move in geometric shapes. And I started getting very afraid. This fear started coming up inside of me. I'm afraid of what the drug's going to do, if it's safe. I'm afraid, like, how can I trust this girl? I just met her. I don't really know her. And so as I started to feel the fear, as my heart started to beat faster, as the effects started to really permeate my experience, I started realizing this fear that I'm feeling right now is the fear that I'm carrying around all the time. It's manifesting itself right now as fear of this experience, fear of the drug, fear of this person. But this fear is what I'm carrying with me all the time. I'm not that trusting of people. I know I seem like I'm very open and trusting, and in some ways I definitely am, but I'm very skeptical of people, very skeptical and not trusting at all. And always really listening for someone to screw up and to show me who they really are, right? Like, you're full of shit too. And so as I started to realize the fear and, and my visual field just started to change, it was really intense, very scary. And just realizing that this is something that I'm carrying around all the time. And if I'm carrying around with me all the time, it's influencing every place that I show up. In fact, if you listen to this podcast regularly, which so many people do, thousands of people do, I would ask you to listen to me right now and compare what the vibe you've gotten from me in the past on different Real Talk Fridays, and to compare that. Because what ended up happening is I worked through that fear. I worked through the feelings. I started to let go. And as I started to let go, this invisible wall started to dissipate. Now, what do I mean by that invisible wall starting to dissipate? I don't know about you, but I connect with people pretty easily. Like, I'll joke with people, ask people questions, but I always have a wall up. I always have the guard up. And by the way, that's a healthy thing to have some walls up, right? But what we want in life is we want a neighborly fence to set boundaries between ourselves and others. We don't need a bunker with a mounted machine gun. And while I couldn't say that I walk around with the mounted machine gun, like a bunker wall, like a solid concrete wall with a machine gun, I definitely had a bigger wall than I'd like. And I wouldn't even call it than is healthy for me. Meaning, I'll just say it like this. what I've come to believe after coaching people for so long and seeing people, in health and fitness, I want to lose weight. I want to look better in my clothes. I want to fit better. What we really want is the experience that life is amazing. Even when it's not great, even when we're going through the ups and downs, life is amazing. And I feel content and fulfilled. And one of the ways we really get to experience this fulfillment is through our relationships with other people. In fact, I've talked about this recently. Research has come out showing that feelings of loneliness, which are separate than actually being alone, by the way, but feelings of loneliness and social isolation, which is actually being alone, can really affect your health to the point where it can be as damaging as smoking, excessive drinking, or obesity. And if that's the case, and if we're suffering from feelings of loneliness, and by the way, I've been dealing with a lot of loneliness lately, personally. Feelings of loneliness when I come over and try to connect with my dad, and all he's locked into, he's only connected with his pain, his resistance to where he is in his life, some of the consequences of his actions. He's just constant. I feel like obviously I don't know, no one person knows what another person is experiencing, right? But if you ask me, well, what do you think is going through his mind? It's like, oh God, I'm in so much pain. Oh, this hurts. I don't want to feel this pain. Why is life like this? Why does life have to be like this? Getting older sucks. And he's so consumed with those thoughts and those negative thoughts and negative feelings, that he can't connect. And even further, he's taking pain pills, which helps deaden the pain a little bit, but doesn't make it go away completely, but also makes it even harder to connect with me because he's there, he's falling asleep, slurring his words, can't pay attention to what I'm saying. And so many of us, maybe you're not in my dad's situation, taking pain pills full of chronic pain, but so many of us, we have these thoughts in our mind running constantly. Oh gosh, what's wrong with my relationship? What's wrong with my wife? What's wrong with my husband? What's wrong with my health? Why am I so fat? My gosh, I need more money. I want to buy this thing, but I can't get it. What's going to happen with the coronavirus? Are my kids going to turn out okay? Am I being a good parent? And we're hooked by these thoughts. We're so hooked by them, and we're stuck in these loops. And every time we try to connect, instead of being able to be present and connect with the person in front of us, whether it's someone that you meet off the street or your family, your children, your parents, your partner, we can't connect. And it seems like the reason we get hooked with thoughts is, number one, because you're human. We're all human. And it just seems to be part of the hard wiring. But the other part seems to come from our childhood, the traumas that we experienced. And when I say traumas, I don't mean you got beat or sexually molested or, hardcore bullied. What I mean is the neglect that you felt. Maybe your parents didn't do anything quote unquote bad, but they didn't show you the love, and they had walls up so it blocked them from connecting with you. And then you walk around feeling like there was something wrong with you. I didn't feel that much love from my parents. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm not good enough, right? And so whatever the story or the experience is, we come out of childhood. So many of us come out of childhood like that. Perhaps something else happens in our life that doesn't have to do with our parents, perhaps. But it seems like even if it isn't your parents, let me share like this. I know this is a bit of a rabbit hole, may seem like a bit of a rabbit hole, but bear with me. Think about this. You are a certain way. Part of the reason why you are the way that you are is you have genetics, which you got from your parents, but you also had an environment where your parents modeled behavior for you. Have you ever found yourself like, man, I haven't lived with my parents in forever, and yet then you connect with them, and you're like, or if you haven't seen them for a while, and you start to realize, oh man, I picked up that bad habit from my dad. I mean, for me, I was very messy, right? I picked that up from my dad. I had a history of compulsive buying of stuff, right? Had that from my dad. And so what I'm getting at here is we have these habits that we picked up in childhood that we got from our parents. But now I want you to think about this. Where did your parents get it from? Their parents. Where did their parents get it from? Their parents. And on and on and on. And guess what? What are you passing on to your children? Oh no, but I sit down and I teach my children. I talk to them about right and wrong. Great. But what are you modeling? They already have your genes. You already have your parents' genes, and they have their parents' genes, and so on. We can't do much about that, but the behavior that we model. So my point in sharing this with you is, even if you don't have a big story, like if you know my story, it's kind of a big story. There's a lot of tragedy, there's suicide, there's murder, there's mental illness. But for my dad, I think I've shared this recently. When I sat there and talked to him, I'm like, man, why is he the way he is? His dad was just never around. And when he was around, he didn't connect with my dad. In fact, one of the conversations that I had with my dad as a teenager is my dad sat me down and talked to me and said, hey, listen, I never had much of a relationship with my dad, and I don't want us to be that way. In fact, one of the few things that my dad told me, your grandpa, was to use a condom during sex. And that was kind of it. And so I don't want our relationship to be like that. I want us to have good communication. I want us to talk. And guess what? That was one of the few conversations, or I think the only conversation that we had, where we sat down and had that talk. So even though he tried to not fall into that pattern that he saw in his father, he sat me down and said, hey, I didn't have a great relationship. I mean, he didn't have anything bad to say about his dad other than he wasn't around and they didn't connect that deeply. But here he is, and he says these things, but then that's like the only conversation. Does that make sense? Do you get that? Do you get where this is going? And so what does this have to do with DMT, ayahuasca? Well, what happens is you start to see where these patterns come from. You start to see your life. And this stuff, it's like going into therapy for 10 years is what they say. Now, I just smoked some DMT. It only lasted, a few hours, 30 minutes, the acute effects. And, I'm still feeling the effects now. It was a few hours ago that I smoked. And it's allowed me to see some of what was going on with me. It wasn't a psychologist talking to me about it. It was like it got past my ego. It got past that part of that saying that wants to create stories about why my life is the way that it is, right? We all have stories. Oh, well, my father, like I had this story recently. Oh, my father is a toxic person. Oh, it's destroying me. Oh, Florida is just a terrible place to be. That part of Central Florida, I can't connect with anybody here. And there's some truth to that for sure. But ultimately, it's me. What do I need to do? Because I changed locations. Great. That changes it changes the external, but it doesn't change the internal. And I started to see my stories for what they were. Now, how do you get that awareness? Well, maybe if you talk to Tony Robbins, he can help you see it. But what if you can't afford $1 million a year to work with him one-on-one? What's something that you can do? And what I've discovered is that ayahuasca in particular can get you there. So let's talk a little bit about this. Does that mean that you should do ayahuasca or smoke DMT or changa or do any of these things? Not necessarily. Some people do this stuff and they don't get much from it. Maybe their bodies are very resistant to the particular chemicals acting in the brain. That happened when I did my ayahuasca ceremony at the end of 2018. It blew my mind and the minds of the majority of the 70 other people that were there. But then a couple of people were like, wow, it's just, I didn't feel anything. But even if it does make you feel something, even if it works, it's still not an end in itself. What do I mean by that? What I mean is this. One of the reasons why I was able to get so much out of today's experience is I've lived outside my country. It gave me a perspective change. Lived outside of the United States for 2.5 years. I can't even begin to explain to you how that shifted my perspective. I started meditating. I did these meditation classes in Asia, in the mountains of Thailand with Buddhist monks. It was another experience that took me to another level. And much less exotically, I've been working with a therapist once a week. I've only missed now 2 weeks out of the past 7 months. 2 weeks of therapy out of every week I've been showing up for the past 7 months. And the only reason why I wasn't able to make it this week or last week rather, was because my therapist took some time off. So what I'm getting at is this. We're searching for an experience. So many people, they want to lose weight, not because when they look on the scale, that number is going to do anything for them objectively, but how when they see themselves in the mirror or look at the number on the scale or fit into the clothes, how that's going to make them feel. Or so many people want to make more money. Oh God, I want to make if I only had more money, if I could only lose some fat, if I could only make more money, if I could only get into a relationship, if my partner would only do their part in the relationship, if I could only buy that thing, that new car or that house or whatever it is, get that job or whatever you might be struggling with during this time, maybe you're not thinking about those things. Maybe it's something completely different. And you feel like the answer's outside of you, like it's some external object that if you acquire, or external result that if you acquire, it's going to make you feel how you really want to feel. And I'm here to tell you, the answer is much more simple, but also much more difficult. The answer, I would argue, comes from changing our perspective on how we see the world, how we see ourselves. Well, how the hell do you change that? Well, that's the question. Some of the experiences that I said will help with that. That's also what I try to do in my coaching group. So many people think, oh, well, it's just I show up and if I follow these rules, I'll get the body I want. Well, yeah, you will. But what my coaching experience is really about is not the end result necessarily. It's about, okay, you say you have a goal to fit back into your jeans, to see a six pack, to weigh a certain amount, to have a certain body fat percentage, whatever that goal is. Then it's about, okay, well, here's how to do it. So getting the right tools, getting the right strategies, that's a big part of it. But then as you implement the strategies, certain things come up. And that's really what the coaching is about. Oh gosh, every time I step on the scale, I get so freaked out. I get so depressed. That is the coaching. That is the work right there. Examine your relationship with the scale. Why does it trigger you so much? You don't come, if you were a barely verbal child at 4 years old or whenever kids start talking, they don't have that. You didn't have that. Where did you get it? Where does it come from? And how about working through it? Well, I don't like exercise. It's hard. I'm not a gym person. Well, what does that mean? You have a body, you have muscles. Muscles are designed to be used. We get a payoff when we use our muscles. I don't love lifting weights, but I understand this is, and you don't even have to lift weights, right? But moving your body, being an exercise person, it's about having a body. That's like saying, well, I have a car, but I'm not the type of person who enjoys driving the car. It just doesn't make any sense, right? Well, you may not actually enjoy driving the car, but the point is this. We're all human beings, and human beings are all more similar than we realize, similar to each other than we realize. And human beings also need certain things, right? And the end result, so often, losing the weight, fitting back into the jeans, it's not really what changes you. It's the journey to becoming the person who achieves the goal. I want you to listen to that again. It's not the outcome. It's the journey and the person you become along the journey. That is the real transformation. It's not the outcome. You want to make more money? Well, you have to become the type of person who knows how to make more money, right? If you want to fit back into your jeans or lose weight and keep it off for good, you're going to have to develop the skills, the perspective, the mindset to keep it. It's very different what I do. I don't give people a green list of foods and a red list of foods and write them a workout. I help them figure out their own recipe for success, and they've got to do the work, right? There's a process to follow. There's rules to follow, a process, let's say, not necessarily rules, and what comes up for you as you apply the rules? How do we need to apply the rules to your life? And some people find that they hit the goal. Actually, I'll share this. I've got a client who crushed it in 3 months. And his issue was, what more can I do here? What should I be doing here? And my answer was not what he wanted to hear. It's like, stay on the path that you're on right now. Be consistent. Keep being consistent. He's like, yeah, but I want to do more. It's like, well, there is nothing more to do. So his issue was, shout out to you, Kevin, to really manage his emotions and just being cool with like, hey, I'm doing enough here. And what I told him was this: he's got a newborn, he's got a young child, he's got a wife. It's like, how about instead of putting more energy into this, into your body, which he got ripped in 3 months, lost like 20 pounds, got ripped in 3 months. You're going to see his photos. Believe me, I'm going to just share them with you. He looks amazing and did amazing. But it's like, hey, maybe doing more has to do with doing enough to get the results you want, but realizing that putting more energy into this gives you diminishing returns. So maybe put that back towards your wife and your child. That's interesting. Another client, shout out to you, Liz, said, so she didn't get an amazing transformation. Too many things came up for her. It was too hard for her to achieve the type of results that she really wanted or thought that she wanted. And what she had to do was had to make peace with the scale. She had to make peace with, like she did her, and the answer, the question rather is this: did you do your best? Did you do everything that you could? And if the answer is yes, then you've got to be cool with that. Could you have done more? And for some people, it just is a longer process. She could take it to the next level if she wanted, or she could stay right there. What I'm saying is this: some people find that as they try to achieve their goal, they realize what it costs to achieve it, because it costs. There's something called an opportunity cost. For everything that you say yes to, you say no to everything else. So if you say yes to focusing on your body, you have to see, well, how much am I going to say yes to this? How much I have my clients track their nutrition, track their macros. I have them track their workouts in the app. I have them do other things, weigh in. And it's like, can you stay on point? And if you can't, ask yourself why. Is it because you don't want it? Because you don't feel like you can? What are the things that are blocking you? And that is the work, my friends. So I know I've been a bit all over the place here, and it's been a bit freestyle, but I'm just saying, so many times we want things, but we don't get the fulfillment from them. And what I'm trying to say is the fulfillment sometimes comes from, it ultimately comes from inside us. And that's what I try to do in the coaching program. I try to help people. I facilitate them coming up with their own answers. Is this really worth it to you? How much is this worth to you? What are you willing to do to achieve this result? And if you're really stuck, I can't tell you how powerful doing something like Changa is or ayahuasca. And there are other probably drug-free ways, in case the whole idea of drinking some substance is just, or smoking some substances is totally like just not in the foreseeable future for you. There's probably other ways, but it's going to be an arduous quest, my friend. It's going to take some type of retreat, some type of experience with a person like a Tony. I use Tony Robbins only because you know exactly who I'm talking about, right? But some type of person who's really done the work. And personally, I don't even know if Tony's that good. I just assume that he is. But there's one of my clients, Rick Day, who's been on the podcast. He said something about, I mentioned an ayahuasca ceremony to him, or a meditation retreat. That might be another way. And what came up for him is Landmark, which is a type of training that a lot of people go through. A lot of, I guess, entrepreneurs, I don't know that much about it personally, but it's something you should check out, Landmark. But the cost, the price you have to pay to the next level of fulfillment, it's not what you think. And it always comes at a cost. And the cost is you've got to go through, you got to do the work and go through the process. Like today, it was a really tough process. That fear that came up inside of me, so afraid. Oof. It's like, oh my God, oh God, oh. You know, that's the price we have to pay. So many people don't want to join my coaching. Oh gosh, no way. Too expensive, too long, 12 weeks. I mean, can't you just give me some macros and write me a workout? I can. You're just not going to become anyone different. And you probably, even if you achieve the goal that you're after, right, that body transformation goal, it probably won't stay for you. Probably won't be sustainable. Why? Because you didn't become anyone different. Because what transformation is really about is this. So many people, what we do, just tell me a new tip, a new trick, a new something. And even with ayahuasca or something like this, you see people, oh, just another check in the box. Oh, I did meditation. I did this. I did that. But they don't become someone different. It's not really a transformation. It's just a recycling of the same person who you already were with some new skills. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's not giving you what you're really after, you're going to have to reach a bit higher and go a bit deeper. You know, it's the difference between horizontal change and vertical transformation. Got to level up. And it comes at a price. But if you're not experiencing the type of change and you're trying to meditate and you're trying to do other things and you're just not getting the results, you're still stuck with the same, you're stuck with the same thoughts, the same fears. You're not, you're getting hooked by these thoughts and not, even though you're trying to meditate or exercise or eat healthy, might be time to reevaluate the strategies that you're taking. Might be time to step up to the plate. So I'm going to end here, but I want you to think about that. What are you really after? And are your current goals that you're setting for yourself and the current things that you're doing, are you just adding more information or are you transforming? Are you becoming someone different? And if you're not getting that sense of fulfillment, if you're not getting that sense of peace, then look more for the transformation. And I'm going to end things here, and I want you to think about that. I want you to think about what we talked about today. I want you to think about your life. I want you to think about what you truly want and how you're going about getting what you want and how the results of your actions, how they're making you feel. And if the answer is, not so great, time to make a change. Time to change your approach. Not because I said so, but because what you're doing, according to you, isn't working. That's what I want to leave you with, all right? Love you out there. Hope you enjoyed today's. This is as real as it'll get, right? As real as it can get. And again, it always feels kind of odd to have this conversation and then talk about the challenge. But what I really aim to do in the challenge, and really, I'll share this one more thing with you. Really what I aim to do with what I do is to help people transform, is to help people really level up, showing them the skills, the knowledge, but taking them through the process and having them do the work, because I make you work in the challenge. And don't worry, there's no strange ceremonies or substances that you have to take, but you got to show up and you've got to do the work. And if that's something that you're interested in, legendarylifepodcast.com/challenge. If you want me to help you with your health, if you want to see if, you can experience transformation in that area of your life. So that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed this one. It's coming from the heart and straight off of this experience. And I hope you have an amazing weekend. Love you, and talk to you on Monday.